Hey, I'm Chris Ralph, the professional prospector, and today we're going to talk about how you can make your very own gold-catching sluice box. And even if you own one, how you can customize it and make it and get better recovery. So building your own sluice box, customizing one you might already have, if you're interested in that, stay tuned because that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, a sluice box is a very handy tool to have. I mean, literally for most guys, most folks getting into prospecting, a sluice box is the second tool you get after you get a pan. And this sluice box right here, we're going to be taking a closer look at it today and getting into the nuts and bolts of it. This sluice box I bought over 40 years ago. It's like a 1977 or 78 Keen model sluice box. I've made a few customizations on it to get better recovery. We're going to talk about those and how you can get really great recovery out of your sluice box. Or if you want to start from scratch, how you can build one for yourself. They're really not that hard. This is a level of a project that most people could handle. Now, the key to designing your own sluice box is understanding how they work. And the truth is, a properly designed sluice box, properly set up in a stream or creek, they do really good job. I mean, they'll do an excellent job, if you run them right, of catching both coarse and fine gold. And if you understand how they work, you can set it up right and you can operate it right, and of course you can design your own. Now, I'm not gonna lay out a plan, get a piece so many inches long and do this, exact plans, because different folks have different needs. I mean, you may want to design for yourself a little small sluice box that you can easily backpack into the high country to get at gold deposits that maybe haven't been worked over so hard. Or you may want something bigger than this. I've got a sluice box I built out in the garage that's like 7-8 feet long, and it's about 2 feet wide. So it's a really big, so you could just shovel all kinds of material into that. So depending on what somebody wants is the kind of design they're gonna make. So I'm not gonna give you one design because there's no one design that fits all. Instead, we're gonna look at how sluice boxes work, understand the concepts, understand why they catch gold so well, and then you can take those ideas and design one for yourself that meets the needs of what you want in a sluice box. Now, something I want to emphasize is I'm not a dealer. I don't sell equipment. I've never sold a sluice box in my life. I bought a couple of them, but that's it. I'm a guy who knows about sluice boxes. I'm not a dealer, so there's no bias, buy this brand, buy that brand, use this super duper matting, don't use that super duper matting. You're not going to find that kind of bias in my videos because I'm a user, not a dealer. So let's get started talking about sluice boxes. Now, sluice boxes are a basic piece of extraction equipment that are used in gold mining plants all over the world. I mean, they've been used since ancient times. My sluice box here, I have some stuff in there called miner's moss. It's a plastic material that's the matting underneath the riffles. Ancient miners used sheep fleece as the equivalent of miner's moss. But way back thousands of years ago, they were using things like sluice boxes. The 49ers and the old-time miners in the western U.S. and elsewhere in the U.S. and other places of the world, they used them too. You can see by old pictures that they were extremely popular. They were just a basic piece of equipment that virtually every miner had to have one. And they've improved some today, and they're still used all over the world in modern placer mining. You can see them on TV shows. You can see them being used in the Yukon and elsewhere. Sluice boxes have been used for thousands of years. And the reason that they're used for thousands of years and still being used? Because they work great if you use them right. So you're going to understand by what we're talking about today, how they work, how to make them work great, because they do work really well. The basic concept of a sluice box is you have a flow of water that allows the lighter material to wash away and the heavier material to remain behind. So materials that are very dense, like gold, but also like iron ores, like black sand, and any trashed lead and bullets or other things like that that might happen to be in the material that you're shoveling in. It'll capture heavy stuff. Oh, garnet, that's another one that's heavy. But anything that's heavy, sapphires, if there's any sapphires present, heavy stuff gets caught in the sluice while it allows the lighter stuff, the lighter rocks and quartz and that sort of thing, to wash on through. That's the basic concept. Heavy stuff gets caught. Light stuff moves on out and goes out in the waste pile. Now the water flowing through your sluice box does the work of separating the lights and the heavies. And there's all different kinds, like I say, different sizes. I mean, the old time 49ers used to make ones hundreds of feet long because they thought somehow they were getting better recovery by having, a 300-foot long sluice. The truth is, they recovered very little gold in the latter part of the sluice. Even with their poorly designed sluices that they had, they still caught most of it up in the front part. Only a little tiny bit would catch in the back. So, but they come in all different lengths. I mean, even modern ones, maybe, I've seen little tiny ones that are no more than a foot long. I've seen plenty of ones like this that are maybe 4 feet long. I've seen plenty of ones in commercial applications where they're doing commercial mining that might be 15, 20 feet long. The 300-foot ones are kind of rare, but that's what the old-time miners used, and they're still in great application today because they work so well. The idea being that you're letting the water do the work for you of washing the light stuff away and keeping the heavy stuff caught. Now, how are we going to achieve that? How are we going to achieve keeping the heavy stuff without washing the heavy stuff out along with the light? Well, there have been a lot of weird sluice designs over the years. I mean, the old-time miners, there's even sluices and some of those really long 300-foot ones that they would use pebbles and rocks as the material in the bottom of the sluice. They figured that, cracks and crevices in the riverbed worked good to catch gold. They knew that from their panning efforts. So they figured pebbles and rocks. Some of them used, branches from trees, but instead of going across the sluice box like we do with our riffles today, they would sometimes run them long down the length of the sluice box. Anyway, a lot of weird designs. We're going to try to avoid the weird designs and go with the designs that are efficient and capture the gold. Now, I mentioned weird designs, and I bring that up because I want to make the point that it's important for you, if you designing your own sluice or if you're customizing an existing sluice, to think about the things that you want in your sluice box. Okay, to think about what's important to you. Is it, well, I'm going to be going after mostly just really fine gold, so I want to emphasize catching fine gold in my sluice box design. Or I want a sluice box, like I mentioned before, that's super portable so I can carry it into the backcountry. Or I want a sluice box that I can just shovel massive amounts of material into the sluice box. I can have 4 guys shoveling in all at once and it won't overload my sluice box. There's all different characteristics like that. You could say, hey, I'm designing a sluice box that I want to be able to use it as a river sluice, and I want to be able to use it as a high banker sometimes, where I could use a pump to pump water in. That's a great thought. And so those kinds of things, you should take some time to think about that and write it down so that you know your priority of what you want to see in a sluice box. And don't just write, well, I want it to do everything perfectly. I want it to be able to take 4 guys shoveling into it, but only be 8 inches long and weigh 4 ounces. And, it doesn't work that way. Think of it kind of like a race car. Or any kind of automobile. You could say, hey, I want a car that carries my family of 8. Okay, you can get a car like that. Or I want a car that I can go race at the track at the weekend. Well, you could probably get something like that, but it's not the same as the car that carries the family of 8. Or you could say, I want a car that gets 45 miles to the gallon. You know, okay, good, you can get that too, but you can't get the 45 mile per gallon car that carries 8 people and does the quarter mile in 12 seconds or 10 seconds or something like that. You have to kind of choose and compromise what you want. And so when we're designing our sluice box, when you're designing your sluice box, think about what's important to you and kind of prioritize those things, because there's no such thing as having one size that's perfect for everybody. It doesn't work that way. That way you can customize the sluice to be what you need it to be and meet your needs the best. You know, when you go to a dealer or a store, you buy what they have to offer. You know, and they may have a couple different models, but you know, you can take it. That's the other thing too, is you can take what they sell you and customize it, which I did with my sluice box here. This is, like I say, a very old Keen sluice box that I modified. We're going to go over that, but you can make it fit more what you want. So let's talk about the basics of how sluice boxes work. Now you can see my sluice box here. It has a Y-shaped feed area, and this brings water in and helps kind of concentrate it into the recovery area. This is where I would put material in. And what happens in this, because it's bigger sized, it has a chance for the materials to start working their way through. The light stuff starts going down, and the heavy stuff starts moving slowly through this. Because this is smooth, it's not going to catch. The heavy stuff will start moving slowly through as the light materials are already washing away. The clays and the sand is already washing away, and the heavy, like the gold and the black sand, is working its way down to the bottom of this slick sheet, basically this flat area, flat smooth area at the entrance. Now it gets to here, and this is actually a customization that I added. This is a little bit of ribbed rubber matting that I glued into the bottom of the sluice just to catch. These things are really handy, and a lot of times the new sluice boxes now will have this ribbed matting glued in the front. It's there to, it basically catches a lot of the really fine gold will be caught in these little ribs up at front. Because the ribs are small, they're only, I don't know, maybe a 32nd of an inch deep, or 1 millimeter, something like that. They're very shallow, and they work really only well for catching very fine gold, tiny flakes and dust. That's what this works best for. But one of the things that it gives you is it gives you a quick look. You can look in here as you're running the sluice box and see, oh, am I getting some gold? Am I not getting any gold? You get a quick indicator. Then we start the riffles here, and these are of course transverse cross riffles. I also have, I'll show you a close-up picture. I also have this expanded metal here. And as originally designed, this had indoor-outdoor carpeting underneath it. Well, I've replaced the indoor carpeting with miner's moss. Miner's moss will load up more heavy material, allow heavies like gold to work their way down through the miner's moss and get caught, so it hasn't got any place to go. Now, when you do big nuggets in this, what I find is this very first riffle, there's a kind of a step up from the matting up to the first riffle, and any big gold will just go right in there and get stuck right against this first rib, the very first riffle. And even other smaller gold will mostly catch in the first riffle or two, very much less by 3, and by the time you get to the end, there's hardly any left. So that's basically the basics of how this sluice box works. Material comes in here. Already, as soon as you put it in, the light stuff is going to be starting to flow down here, the clays and the sand. The heavier pieces will move more slowly through the gold and the black sand. Fine gold will get caught here on this ribbing and give you a good indication. Then the riffles, the gold gets caught behind the riffles or in the expanded metal, little flakes, and it falls and works its way into the miner's moss. And gets caught. And so this thing is very efficient at catching a lot of sized gold. So the three things that I've added to this old-timey sluice from Keen is the rib matting up front, the miner's moss underneath, and then a handle. There's a handle here. It makes it so much easier to pick up and carry the sluice. It's just a lot easier to carry it around. You're carrying it down to the river. So those are a couple of customizations that I made, and I think they make the sluice work a lot better. Let's talk about the materials that you're going to make the trough part of your sluice box out of. You can see that this, my sluice box, is made out of aluminum sheet metal. It's folded over and put together. And in all honesty, I recommend aluminum. I think that's what you should use because it's light and it's durable. It's tough stuff. I've had this thing for 40 years. Probably got several more decades left in it before, you know, maybe I'll pass it on down to my son or my granddaughter or something. Anyway, a lot of you guys will probably look at this and say, hey, you know, I've never really done much with metal before, and so I'd like to make mine out of wood. Well, here's the thing. You can't make it out of plywood. Don't even try to use plywood, because what happens, you put plywood in water. Plywood is wood that's held together with glue, and you let glue sit in water all day, it just comes apart. And you know, you'll run the sluice box and maybe it'll last for a day, maybe it'll last for 2 days. By the third or the fourth day, you know, for the time you've used it, it'll be so fallen apart you'll hardly be able to pick it up out of the water. So no plywood. Then you could use plank, you know, regular like pine plank, and that's when I made my wooden sluice box. Because the reason I'm recommending aluminum, I have experience making a sluice box out of wood. That's why I'm recommending aluminum. So when you make it out of plank, and that's what I made mine out of, the wood gets waterlogged. You put it in a stream all day long, the wood gets waterlogged. And by the time you go to pick up the sluice at the end of the day, and you've got a sluice box full of gravel and riffles and waterlogged wood, that thing weighs about a ton. And you know, that was my first sluice box, was the one I made out of wood. And I was probably, you know, 17 or 18 when I used it. I used it one time. It was so heavy. It was unwieldy to use. And here's the truth. The old timers used wood for their sluice boxes. They used wood. So why can't you use wood? Well, here's the thing. The old timers, when they used wood for sluice boxes, they were not portable. They were not intended to be portable. They would be moved only once in a great while. Like they might set up a wooden sluice box and use it, you know, for 6 months before they moved it. And that's the thing. If you intend to use, like I use this sluice box, I take it in someplace, I use it for a day or two, something like that, and then, you know, I'm on my way. Or I use it a day, go out, come back, go out, come back, you know, take it and use it as a portable thing. You don't want to use wood. The wood will get weak and start falling apart. The nails will come out. Even if you use screws, it won't stay tight. The wood will want to swell and get, like I say, super waterlogged. So unless you're going to use it like the old timers did, where you put a sluice box in someplace and you're just going to leave it for 6 months, you want to go with metal. Now, some of you might say iron. And you know, there are some commercial type sluice boxes that never move, again, that are made out of iron, but iron rusts. And even if it's galvanized, it won't last forever. Galvanized will make it last longer. So you end up with aluminum. Now, one of the things about aluminum, using it, is you don't have to build it all as one piece. You'll note that I have this Y-shaped piece here, and then there's a long straight shaped piece. Well, these are actually two different pieces of metal, and they're joined together with what they call pop rivets. And there's several of them right here. You can see them on the inside right there. I don't know if that'll be close enough here. I'll give you a close-up picture of that. Pop rivets are really handy. They can be used to join pieces together. So you don't even have to have the trough section be all one piece. This one is all one piece. But you could make a trough section with several smaller pieces put together. And sheet aluminum like this, it can be bought at places like Home Depot, and you can bend it on, using like a couple of 2x4s, you could bend it on a good vise. So, you know, a trough material made out of aluminum is really not beyond your reach. You just got to think about it, how you're going to do it, but it's doable. So let's talk about the riffle system in your sluice box. How you're going to catch the gold. You know, having a little bit of smooth area up here at the start is good, but you've got to have some sort of riffles in there, some sort of matting or something to catch the gold. Now this particular one was built with a series of metal riffles. And honestly, to make metal riffles, I understand you need a welding setup. I have a welder, so I can make riffles. You can make Hungarian riffles. You can even make riffles that that are attached. You know, you might think you can make riffles that are attached other ways, metal, but metal is good for riffles simply because it's durable. It'll take the abuse of gravel running over it. But there are, in this day and age, plastic, rubber, silicone type mattings that you can just line your sluice box with that material. Literally, you could buy for whatever width of trough that you make, you could buy a matting that's the length and width to match what you've created, and you can just lay that and attach it in the bottom. Now I recommend you have some sort of attachment on the side, even if you use these rubber or silicone mattings, and not just glue it to the bottom, because the trick is that if you glue it, it's going to be 10 times harder to clean the thing out when you're done at the end of the day. This thing is great because there's a little wing nut here. The whole riffle system just all pulls out. You can wash it into a bucket. It's easy. If you have some sort of side system that holds down plastic matting or something like that, or rubber, silicone, whatever type matting, holds it down on the sides, and then you can pop that up or release it at the end of the day, then great. You can just roll up the matting and put it in a bucket and wash the whatever material remains in the trough, wash it into the bucket too. Again, easy to clean. So you want to think about the easy to clean part of it when you're doing this. This little matting up here that I glued in, it's kind of a pain to clean. That's one of the downsides of gluing something in like this, is it makes it a pain to clean. So lots of different mattings. There's a dream mat with the swirl. There's, you know, various, you know, different makers, Gold Hog and other ones that you know have different kinds of mattings. Some of these mattings that get sold as being super duper are, all they are really is a specialized conveyor belt type of material that's been taken and used. So you know, most of the mattings work really well. The trick with gold is it's very heavy, and it's not that hard to catch in a sluice box as long as you have the flows right. You know, you have some sort of an irregular material on the bottom. And I've got expanded metal here. That's another good thing. I mean, literally expanded metal cut to size over the top of indoor-outdoor carpet, or like this miner's moss. That in and of itself is a great sluice bed material. And with a material with expanded metal, if you get a bigger size, this is a very small size, but you can get 1/4 inch that's, or 1/8 of an inch or whatever, that's been expanded. Makes for a great bottom, and that's an alternative to the different kinds of silicone or rubber or whatever mattings that go on the bottom of these things. But gold's not that hard to catch. An irregular surface like this, the riffles, the expanded metal, the miner's moss, or other super mattings that you buy, you know, it catches gold, and they do a good job. The biggest thing, like I say, is knowing how to run it right, not putting it, you don't want the water such that if you put your material in, the material just sits there and goes nowhere. You want to put your material in, and then you see pretty quick the light stuff starting to work its way down, and then maybe the little pebbles and little things working their way down, and they work their way down with a reasonable speed. The other alternative is you don't want to put it in and have it go whoosh, everything just goes right through. Whoosh, it's all gone. Because if you're getting so fast, you get whoosh, it all goes through like that. If you're getting the material move so fast that it looks like that, the water's too fast, and the fine gold that's in there will also go whoosh out the back. So a medium speed. You put the material in, it works its way down, through the sluice, and eventually the light stuff goes off the end. That's the trick to sluices, and there's a lot of options for what goes on the bottom of the sluice, and a lot of them work great as long as you're running the sluice right, feeding the material in properly. You know, one of the things too about a lot of guys will screen material, and unless your gold is super duper fine, you know, screening it screening it to pebble size is probably okay. If you have, you know, big fist-sized chunks of rock, big small cobbles and that sort of stuff, yeah, you don't need to put that in the sluice. The cobbles are not, they're just going to mess things up. So, you know, just take out the big rocks. Sometimes, you know, when I feed stuff in here, if there's any big rocks, I just pull the big rocks out. Because what happens is the big rocks will go in up here and they won't move through. You have a normal speed that moves sand and gravel through here at a normal rate. Yeah, you put in, you know, a cantaloupe-sized cobble up here, it's not going to go anywhere. So you got to pick the cobble off, wash it off a little bit, toss it aside. Anyway, I hope that gives you kind of a better idea that yes, you can go out and make a sluice box for yourself. Or you can take an existing sluice box that you have, like I had this one, and make it even better. It's part of understanding how sluice boxes work. If you understand how they work, you can make them work even better. So I recommend that you sit down and write down the things that you want to see in your sluice box. The things that you think will make your sluice box work the best. The things that meet your needs as far as how much to process or how portable the sluice box is. You know, that's or what you're going to use it for. You're going to use it for a high bank or two, you know, that sort of thing. Those considerations should go into your design of the sluice box. And when you sit down and write it down, then you really have a chance to think about it and understand what it is you want to make for yourself, or, you know, what you want to do to your existing sluice box to customize it. So my recommendation is get out there and do it. You know, you can think about it a lot. Writing it down, that's good, but you reach a point where you need to start taking some action. And once you get something built, once you've created that sluice box that you thought about and, you know, spent some time building for yourself, once you've got it built, you got to get out and start feeding that rich gold-bearing gravel into it, making yourself some gold. Now, the one thing about sluice boxes is they won't tell you where to go to find gold. And they won't even tell you, you know, if you go to a rich gold-bearing stream, they won't tell you where to dig. For those sorts of things, you need the skills of a prospector. You need to understand how the gold lays in the stream, where it's deposited, where to dig. And then when you feed that gravel through, your sluice box will recover it for you. But you need to know where to dig. You need to understand. You need to have the skills. And prospecting, it's like a trade skill. You learn what you need to know to be successful. And if you want to gain those skills of being a better prospector and knowing how to find gold when you're out in the field, I wrote a book about that. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my book about finding gold right now. So let me tell you a little bit more about my book. It's called Fistful of Gold, and I wrote it because I want you to be able to go out and find for yourself Fistful of Gold. And you can see that it's an encyclopedia with all kinds of information, pictures, and that sort of thing. It's not in color, but color would have cost me a lot more to have printed, and so the book would have cost a lot more. It's for sale on Amazon, and you can pick it up. I'll put a link in the description below. I also serve as the editor for a prospecting magazine. It's ICMJ's Prospecting and Mining Journal. And honestly, you should check that out. We got stories and information, legal stuff, everything you know to increase your skills as a prospector. I write articles in this every month, and a lot of other very experienced prospectors contribute to the magazine as well. So check the magazine out. Also, I have a website, and the website is at NevadaOutbackGems.com. I'll put a link for it in the description below, but there's gobs of information there that you will find useful in your prospecting efforts. Finally, I want to say that I really appreciate your comments and thoughts, and even positive criticism. Don't come on there and just toss out insults, because I'll just delete your comments. But if you've got helpful things to say and questions to ask, do write and put those in the comments, because I answer my comments to people, and you'll hear from me in responding to you. So if you've enjoyed this video and you like what you see and you're interested in finding out more, well then sign up, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so they'll let you know when I post new videos. And like it and share it if again you see stuff that you really are excited about. And I'll be coming out with lots more new videos, and so we'll see you again real soon.